Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really mind-bending idea. What if we could create new medicines, not by just searching for them, but by literally programming one of nature's oldest kingdoms to make them for us?
For the longest time, finding new drugs was kinda like a numbers game. But that well is starting to run dry. The old school methods of just screening plants and soil, well, they're giving us fewer and fewer breakthroughs. We've kind of hit a wall.
But what if the answer isn't about just testing more stuff, but about learning to talk to the life that's already here? The source material we're digging into today points to a pretty amazing answer: fungi. I mean, think about it. They are master chemists, and we've barely scratched the surface of what they can really do.
And that brings us right to our first section, the medicine maker's block. For way too long, finding new drugs in nature has been a total game of chance, just hoping we stumble upon the next penicillin. And let's be real, that's just not a reliable strategy anymore.
So, if the old way isn't cutting it, what's the alternative? That's our second section, programming nature's code. And this is a huge shift in thinking. Instead of just passively looking for useful stuff, we could start actively convincing nature to create it for us, basically on demand. This quote just nails the whole idea. We stop seeing fungi as just, organisms, and we start treating them like these tiny, super powerful factories, or as the source puts it, energy-programmable chemistry engines that we can actually learn to operate. So, what are we trying to get these little factories to make? Well, they're called secondary metabolites. A fungus doesn't make these things all the time, right? Only when it's in a specific situation, like it's stressed or fighting for its turf. This stuff is the potential goldmine for new medicines, and most of it is normally silent, just hidden away in the fungus's DNA. Which leads us to part 3, designing the fungal factory. Okay, so if fungi are these little chemistry engines, how in the world do you program them? Well, you need a system. You need a platform that's built from the ground up to unlock all that hidden chemical magic.
First things first, you can't just grab any old mushroom. Step 1 is building the chassis. This basically means picking out a dream team of fungi. Think penicillium or cordyceps, mapping out their DNA to find all that untapped potential. And, of course, making absolutely sure we're only working with strains that are safe.
But listen, having the right fungus is only half the battle. The real secret, the key to waking up those silent genes, is all about the environment we build around it.
And this is the control panel, what the source material calls the terrain matrix. On the left, you've got the substrates. That's the food, the raw materials you give the fungus. Then on the right, you have the energetic levers. These are the conditions. We're talking about pulsing oxygen, hitting it with specific colors of light, or even putting it next to some bacteria to kickstart its defenses. Every single combination is like a different setting on our factory's control panel.
All right, let's move on to section 4, finding the golden molecules. We've built our factory, we've got our control panel, so now it's time to fire it up and see what our fungi actually make.
The big question is, right, what actually happens when you start pulling these levers, when you change the food and you stress out the fungi in these very specific controlled ways? Do you get anything predictable out of it? And the answer is a resounding yes. This chart, this fast-levered outcome map, it shows a direct link between a trigger and a result. So for example, look at that first row. If you limit its nitrogen, the fungus shifts from growing to defending itself, and bam, it starts pumping out antibiotics. Or check out the third row. Grow it with some bacteria, and it makes these unique toxins to fight back, which could be amazing antibiofilm agents. You don't have to be a chemist to get the point here. We are literally steering the chemical output. And get this isn't some 10-year project. The whole process is incredibly fast. This 90-day plan shows that in just 6 weeks, you can test dozens of conditions and generate thousands of new molecules. By the end of 3 months, you can have your top 3 novel molecules isolated and ready for a closer look. That's a massive speed up in the pace of discovery. But finding a promising molecule is really just the start. So that brings us to section 5, from discovery to drug. How do you take one of these winners from the lab and turn it into a real, scalable medicine?
Well, there's a whole systematic pipeline. First, you amplify production. You use genetic tools to basically tell the fungus, hey, make more of that good stuff. Then you rationalize it. You figure out what the molecule is and exactly how it works. After that, you optimize it, making it safer and more powerful. and finally use scale production. It's a really clear road from a lab discovery to an actual product.
And all of this leads us to our final section. The future is fungal. Because this is so much more than a new lab technique. It's about learning an entirely new language for creating medicine.
This quote from the source says it all perfectly. You're not just hoping a fungus makes something useful. You are actively writing the environmental and energetic sentence that tells it which chemistry to express. We're becoming translators. Heck, we're becoming authors of nature's chemical language. Ultimately, what this all means is we're seeing a fundamental shift. We're moving away from a game of pure chance, just blindly hoping to find nature's secrets. And we're moving toward a game of skill, where we can deliberately engineer the conditions to unlock them. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. We're learning to program fungi. So what's next? What other huge untapped natural kingdoms? I'm talking deep sea bacteria, desert algae. What else could we learn to communicate with and program? The possibilities are just staggering to think about. Thanks for tuning in.